Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. So, if you're just stepping into ninth grade science, or maybe you just want a quick refresher on how to view the universe like an actual scientist, well, you are in exactly the right place. Now, I know a lot of people think secondary science is all about memorizing these intimidating facts, right? Just staring at endlessly long equations until your eyes blur. But I'm here to tell you, as a friend walking you through this piece by piece, that it's really not. It's actually about unlocking new cheat codes to understand how the world around you actually works. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Think about this for a second. Could you predict the future using just math and observation? No way, right? It sounds like an absolute superpower. But asking massive, kind of tricky questions exactly like this is what secondary science is really all about. We aren't just going to sit here and look at a bunch of dry facts today. We're going to learn how to answer these big questions together using the literal exact same tools that real scientists use every single day. And, if you look closely at the margins of your textbook, you'll see your primary tools are actually handed to you right away. On one side, you have this magnifying glass. That symbolizes careful observation, really noticing those hidden patterns and paying attention to the tiny details that everyone else just completely misses. Then, on the other side, you have a compass. And that's there to remind us that exploration needs a clear direction. You can't just wander around aimlessly. You need to ask the right questions and know exactly where you're going. So let's look at cheat code number 1, use models. Here's the thing, the natural world is incredibly complex. Trying to study every single detail all at once, basically impossible. So to survive ninth grade science, you have to simplify that complex world by building models. It's really just about focusing only on what's absolutely crucial for the specific question you're asking. Like, imagine you're trying to predict if a cricket ball hit by a batter is going to cross the boundary for a six. To make a scientific model, you have to deliberately ignore certain things. We literally ignore the brand of the bat, the exact shade of the field grass, or the little thread stitching on the ball. None of that matters for our math. We just ignore it. Instead, we keep the important stuff: the mass of the ball, its speed, and its direction. Simplifying like this isn't a mistake. It's a deliberate choice, so we can actually solve the problem. And hey, even world-class physicists do this. Take the brilliant physicist Meghnad Saha, for example. He didn't try to calculate every single complex atomic reaction happening inside a star. I mean, that would be way too much. Instead, he essentially ignored all those microscopic details and just modeled the entire star as a giant ball of simple hot gas. And by stripping away all those distracting details, he was able to make a massive discovery about how the color of a star is deeply connected to its temperature. Pretty cool, right? Okay, moving on to cheat code number 2, which is all about the secret language of math. Now, I know math makes a lot of people nervous, but here's the secret. Scientists don't use math and specific symbols just to make your life harder, I promise. They use it because it's a shared, universal language. Whether you're in India, Japan, or Brazil, the symbol for mass is always M, and the symbol for velocity is V. It allows everyone on Earth to collaborate without any confusion. And to see why this matters so much, here is a super tricky, boss-level question for you to ponder. Think about this carefully. A highly trained flight crew is flying a massive passenger airplane. Suddenly, midair, they run completely out of fuel. Now, thankfully, they managed to glide to a safe emergency landing and everyone was fine. But how could such a massive, terrifying mistake happen in modern aviation? Well, the absolute crucial point here is that they didn't use the agreed-upon scientific language. They didn't use standard SI units. The aircraft needed exactly 22,300 kilograms of fuel, but the ground crew, they calculated the density of the fuel in pounds per liter instead of kilograms per liter. Because they mixed up that language of units, the airplane was literally 15,000 liters short. So yeah, this is exactly why a kilogram absolutely has to mean a kilogram everywhere in the world. Next up, we really need to talk about laws, theories, and principles. You're going to see these 3 very intimidating words pop up constantly as you read through your textbook. And honestly, people mix them up all the time. So let's break them down together line by line so you never get confused by them again. First up, a scientific law. Now, when you hear law, don't think of a legal rule or a police officer. In science, a law merely describes a regular pattern that we observe in nature over and over again, like Newton's laws of motion. They just explain the predictable pattern of why your body jerks forward when the bus you're riding in suddenly slams on the brakes. It's just an observed pattern, nothing more. Second, we have theory. Now, in everyday conversation, you might say, oh, I have a theory about who stole my pen, which usually just means it's a random guess.
But in science, a theory is definitely not a guess. Not at all. It is a heavily tested, deeply researched explanation of why those patterns happen. A great example is the atomic theory, which explains exactly why and how molecules are formed, based on tons and tons of evidence.
And finally, a principle. A principle is really just a broad idea that acts as a guide to help us make sense of specific situations. For instance, you rely on the broad principle of the conservation of energy to understand how energy transfers when you're sweating and burning calories climbing up a steep flight of stairs. Which brings us to cheat code number 4, the power of prediction. Once we truly understand these laws, theories, and principles, we unlock what is basically the ultimate scientific superpower, the power to predict things before they even happen. When our models are solid, we can anticipate the outcome before we even run an experiment. Sometimes even when an experiment is completely impossible. We can predict exactly how a kicked football will travel, or how much carbon dioxide a chemical reaction will make. And we can even use this predictive power to bust those crazy viral social media myths. Have you ever heard the claim that you shouldn't eat food during a solar eclipse because the food magically becomes harmful or toxic? Let's use our new scientific cheat codes to look into this one. Science requires us to ask smart, testable questions. So, what actually is an eclipse? Really? It's just a shadow. The moon is just blocking the sun. So, ask yourself, does the temperature change enough to spoil food? No. Does your sandwich suddenly go bad if you just stand under the shadow of a tree? Of course not. So we quickly realize there is absolutely no physical, chemical, or biological mechanism that makes food toxic just because it's in an eclipse shadow. Myth completely busted by basic science.
All right, cheat code number 5 is what I like to call the estimation game.
See, you don't always need an exact, perfect calculation. A lot of the time, getting a rough, approximate estimate is totally enough to check if your thinking actually makes sense, and to start building your scientific intuition. Let's play the game right now. How many liters of air do you think you breathe in a single day? Let's walk through it together. Step 1. When you're just resting, you take about 12 to 15 breaths a minute. Step 2. There are 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours a day, which comes out to 1,440 minutes in a day. Multiply that and you take roughly 20,000 breaths a day. Step 3. Well, how big is one breath? Think of a 2-liter party balloon. It takes maybe 4 breaths to fill it up, right? So one breath is roughly half a liter. So if we take 20,000 breaths and each one is half a liter, boom, when you multiply it all out, you get a staggering 10,000 liters of air breathed every single day. That's incredible. And we didn't need any complicated lab equipment to figure that out. We just used our estimation cheat code to get a really reasonable, fascinating answer.
And that brings us to our final concept, which is all about connecting the science puzzle.
As you advance in your studies, you're going to notice your classes start to divide up. You'll go to a physics class, and then a chemistry class, and then biology. But I really want you to remember a crucial secret. The real world does not care about these artificial boundaries. They're literally just categories we made up to organize our textbooks. Look at something as seemingly simple as a surgical mask used during the COVID pandemic. To actually invent that, you need all the branches of science working together. You need physics for the electrostatic attraction that traps the particles. You need chemistry to create the polymer fibers of the fabric itself. You need biology to understand the size and the behavior of the virus. And you need math to model how the air actually flows through the mask. You just cannot separate them. To solve the biggest problems in the world, things like climate change or developing new medicines or creating sustainable technology, you have to open the box. You have to bring all these different pieces of the puzzle together. Because science isn't just a boring collection of facts. It's a highly creative, collaborative human activity that connects so many different ways of knowing. So, as you step into your secondary science journey, remember that you aren't just reading a book. You are learning how we actually understand the universe. Armed with your magnifying glass for careful observation, your compass for clear direction, and all these new cheat codes, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What mystery of the universe will you choose to explore and decode first? Happy exploring!